Enough is enough. For too long, I have seen downplay on the go, disrespect, slander, and frankly just blatant ignorance for the sake of agenda. But enough time has passed. I've watched this go on for too long. It's time that I show you all not only his true strength, not only his importance, but why Blackbeard is simply him and why his father would be proud of the legacy that he left behind. To understand Blackbeard, we must understand why he is the most disrespected and downplayed character in the story right now. Yes, I'm going on the record, Blackbeard is by far and away the most disrespected character in the One Piece community. And let me tell you why. More than Mihawk, more than Akainu, more than even Sanji, Blackbeard is the one character who could actually do something crazy and people will tell you he couldn't do it. Blackbeard gets called the off-screen demon. The moment we cut to black, it's up. But if we ever saw Blackbeard do anything on screen, the majority of y'all wouldn't even believe it because of the disrespect that's been perpetuated around this man. But why is that? Why is he so disrespected? What could a character like Blackbeard have done to deserve this? I'll tell you what he did. The crime that he committed, Blackbeard's only mistake. The only thing he's done wrong is be directly tied to Shanks. I know you don't want to hear it, but it's true. Shanks being tied to Blackbeard is the entire reason why people disrespect Blackbeard to no end. Why they will legitimately take their eyes out of their sockets and watch the show blind whenever Blackbeard does anything crazy on screen because they can't believe he could do it. They did it with Mihawk. They do it with Akainu. But the difference between those two is that Shanks has already either made them look bad or Oda makes Shanks look better than them. But not Blackbeard. Your God King, your red-haired Destiny Child, is simply just a rat scurrying around at the feet of Blackbeard. And Shanks fans need to understand that. Shanks' role is simply going to be to die for the new generation at the hands of Blackbeard. The sooner you realize that, the sooner your disingenuous hate towards Blackbeard will stop. I made a poll on this channel to do a temperature check of the IQ of the community, and I'm afraid to say the temperature is below 0. People will genuinely ignore the story for the sake of their own Shanks hype. The poll was not an opinion poll. I make polls where there are no right answers the majority of the time because I like spurring discussion, but that was not one of those polls. This was one of the polls with an obvious answer. There are people that genuinely believe that Shanks lied to Whitebeard's face when he says Blackbeard beat his ass and he wasn't even off guard when he did it. Shanks told Whitebeard to his face, do not let Ace fight that man because he is the truth. You may think Blackbeard is some fat cherry pie eating but he is a monster. Not Shanks' exact words, but if he was born in a different time, that's exactly what he would have said to Whitebeard. Know this, Shanks is not more important to the story than Blackbeard. Oda did not put that scene with Whitebeard and Shanks into the story for you all to think, well, Shanks would have low-diffed him anyway because he's a coward and a liar and he would have snuck him. He put that in there for you to know that Blackbeard is a terrifying man and not even Shanks could have hoped to stop him back then. But I'll fry Shanks up later on, so let me cool on that. Another piece of why Blackbeard is now so disrespected, especially in recent times, is the reveal of Xebec and how legendary he is. Xebec's legend, his aura, his swagger, his charisma, all of it is simply just Blackbeard gas. Oda is not glazing rocks this hard for him to return to the story. Oda is glazing him this hard for you to understand why the man who inherited his will, who took up the banner he carried, and who is the heir to his glory will dominate the world right now. You guys see rocks and think Oda is doing this to downplay Blackbeard? To clown on Blackbeard? There's a reason why he was introduced as Blackbeard's father in the same panel we got his face revealed. Do you know how insane that is? We have never gotten that for any character in the history of the series, where their first face reveal introduction is them being tied to a major character in the current era. That's like Ace getting revealed for the first time in Alabasta and in that same panel having Son of the Pirate King right underneath it. Xebec gas is Blackbeard gas. This entire flashback, Blackbeard has been observing the man his father was, seeing his legend, and for some reason you people think that Oda is doing all of that just to have Xebec be the mastermind behind the monster that is Blackbeard. To have someone else be the orchestrator for the legend that has been built up since Jaya. Do you guys know how early into the story Blackbeard was introduced? Since Drum Island. Blackbeard has been integral to the story longer than the Gorosei have even been characters. And all of a sudden you guys think Oda is going to throw everything built up around him out the window just so you can soothe your aching wounds with, well, it's not even like Blackbeard really scarred Shanks, it was Xebec who scarred Shanks. Blackbeard hatred is some of the most superficial nonsense created in the story. You have a parallel to the main character, introduced since the earliest points of the series, built up for years and years and years, a direct rival to what everyone considers the Pirate King of this generation. Not only that, but it is a man who gave that man the biggest, most traumatizing scar he has ever received, even beyond the world's greatest swordsman himself. The man who took the worst criminals in the world out of Impel Down and even the vice warden of Impel Down to join him. The place where Luffy was nearly killed in pursuit of his brother. The orchestrator of the greatest war in the series to date, and the man who completely replaced the legacy of the Pirate King's rival, and the man stated to be closest to the One Piece. You guys would see a character like Blackbeard in any other story and would be calling him the great greatest villain of all time, and that's if Blackbeard does everything he does right now and doesn't do anything for the rest of the story. Characters like Madara, Aizen, Vegeta, Frieza, Joker, Darkseid, Thanos, all of them are characters exactly like Blackbeard, but for some reason Blackbeard is hated where they are loved and adored. But I'll tell you why that is later. First, before that, you need to understand, no matter how much you don't like Blackbeard, Oda loves Blackbeard. I'd argue Oda loves Blackbeard damn near as much as he loves Luffy, Zoro, and Shanks. Oda has been giving Blackbeard some of the most insane glaze in the series. Blackbeard is the only character who has actually claimed this era, and until stated otherwise, this era is Blackbeard's era. It's not Shanks' era. It's not Luffy's era. It's not Imu's era. Whether you like it or not, the name of the current era changed from Whitebeard to Blackbeard. Blackbeard has terrified a man who is unafraid to scrap with the world's greatest swordsman, and the difference is, where Mihawk said he's not gonna fight some one-armed has-been to his face, Blackbeard told Shanks to his face that he's going to come back and get him when he's ready for him. I don't think you guys understand when I tell you this, so let me slow it down for you. Elbaf is literally walking distance from Hachinosu. Shanks has never, not once, ever even thought of pulling up on Blackbeard. Blackbeard tells Shanks to his face he's not ready to fight him and he's going to fight him in the future. Shanks hears that after seeing Blackbeard get an ability that now is allowing him to jeopardize the entire world after his prophecy to Whitebeard comes to pass, and you know what he does? He does nothing. He lets him walk out as he laughs in his face. Shanks groups up with Marco, the man who he asked to join his crew, the man who he sailed with to bury his father and his brother. He lets Marco and the remnants get obliterated by Blackbeard and allows Blackbeard to take control of every last one of Whitebeard's territories and become an even greater threat to him than before. But Shanks just wants to keep the peace. He doesn't really want to interfere. Shanks has no problem interfering. He didn't have an issue stopping Kaido from going to Marineford. He didn't have an issue telling Whitebeard to withdraw Ace. He didn't have an issue with stopping the war on Marineford, and he had no problem going out of his way to stop Green Bull, but with Blackbeard he has a problem stepping in. The man who he deems to be the biggest threat to the world right now. If it's ever revealed that Shanks went to the Gorosei and talked about Blackbeard, I don't want to hear Shanks' name ever brought up with Blackbeard's again unless it's Shanks was terrified of Blackbeard. Blackbeard is that guy. He is that terrifying, and at the very least Oda is putting more respect on his name than all of you guys will. You want to know why it's Davy D Teach? You want to know why it's Rocks D Teach? Because it's not the Davy D lineage that's great, and it's not Xebec that's great. It's Blackbeard that's great, and they are now being made great and being made important for you to understand why Blackbeard is the menace that Blackbeard really is. Y'all never peep that Oda is writing a story. You all think your agendas matter more than the narrative, but Oda doesn't care about your narrative that says Zoro would beat Blackbeard's ass. But if Oda cares so much about Blackbeard, why does he let Blackbeard look so bad in his fights, Raftel? Why does he make him look like a clown? I mean, sweating to S-Hawk? Bleeding from Law? Running from a Kainu? I mean, good lord, Xebec was killing admirals back in the day. And? Okay? Shanks will fight everyone else but Blackbeard. Did y'all slander him for that? Law had Big Mom's ribs broken with Shock Willie, had her begging him not to use that attack again, and did y'all slander her for that? They'll tell you Blackbeard was sweating from S-Hawk, but what they won't tell you is that Blackbeard was only concerned with the fact that S-Hawk was a Lunarian pacifista, and all he ever mentions concerning S-Hawk is that. Blackbeard never mentions his strength. He never says anything that implies he was on the back foot, and he's literally blocking his sword swings with his bare hands when he takes more damage than the average character would. But hey, whatever lies we need to tell to downplay Blackbeard, right? What they won't tell you is that S-Hawk knocked Zoro back in the same clash where he has S-Hawk sweating, but hey, we love to cherry pick feats when it comes to hating on Blackbeard, right? Oda lets Blackbeard look bad for the same reason he makes Luffy look bad. He doesn't write a story where someone's gonna win all the time. Oda says himself that he will actively hinder Luffy in fights so that Luffy doesn't win them right away. Luffy looks bad in every fight he's in. Every last one. Did anyone slander Luffy when Foxy was beating his ass? Did we slander Luffy when he was getting held off by base ulti? But we'll do it when Blackbeard takes a singular hit from the man who can deal enough damage to break Big Mom's ribs, right? We'll slander him when he gets knocked back by the amped clone of the world's greatest swordsman, right? We'll hate when the son of the Pirate King and one of Whitebeard's top commanders can damage him, right? We'll hate when he runs from the strongest and most deadly admiral the Navy has ever had, right? You guys aren't serious when you hate on Blackbeard because there's nothing you can say about him that other characters you glaze to high heaven haven't also already done. Blackbeard is quite possibly the most dominant fighter in the verse right now because everything he does with an active weakness. Luffy's weaknesses are engineered into the story. Him coming into the fight late, him running out of stamina, and so on and so forth. But Blackbeard's weaknesses are engineered into the character of Blackbeard himself. He literally has a devil fruit that actively hinders him in battles, and he still dominates even with that ability. He takes more pain, absorbs more damage, has to pull people into close range for his ability to truly take effect, and he still bodies everyone he fights even with that ability. People will use Blackbeard running from his fight fights to slander him or him sweating to slander him. I didn't know that sweat scaling was something we did nowadays. Is Shanks weaker than Kid because he made him sweat? Was Kizaru going to low diff Luffy because he made him sweat? Was Start of Rooftop Zoro stronger than Big Mom and Kaido because he made them sweat? People who actively admit they could not beat Blackbeard have made him sweat. Sweating is not an anti-feat. Roger sweats Garp and they're literal equals. It's only ever an issue when Blackbeard does it because we just love to hate on Blackbeard for some reason. But I'm gonna move on because I could low-key go on and on forever about the things that people hate on Blackbeard for that are simply just ridiculous. But I'll be going into two main things from now on. Why Blackbeard is destined to accomplish his dream, and why he has already proven that he's the son of Xebec, and why his father would be proud of the legacy that he left behind. As I said before, Blackbeard has been in the story. Blackbeard is the definition of a payoff villain. Oda never planned for the story to run as long as it has, yet despite that, Blackbeard has always been around. Imu is a post-time skip creation. He didn't get introduced until 906. Let that sink in. Almost 200 chapters ago, Imu made his first appearance. Blackbeard has been around since Drum Island. The only thing you can draw in the pre-time skip to say that Oda has been planning for Imu to be a threat is Enel. And unlike Enel and Imu, Blackbeard has been both a major and relevant threat in both the pre-time skip and the post-time skip. Drum Island leads to Alabasta. Alabasta leads to Jaya. Jaya leads to the break between Water 7, and after that leads to Marineford. Blackbeard was the main villain of the entirety of the pre-time skip era of One Piece. Literally everything in the background was building up Blackbeard, and it culminated in the war at Marineford, which ended in Blackbeard's victory. Blackbeard is being set up to become the king of the world one day. Imu is just a stepping stone for Blackbeard. People see characters like Buggy, Shanks, Mihawk, Garp, characters introduced early on that Oda has planned for and now has given them endgame relevancy beyond anything any current character has received, and then they look at Blackbeard and see somebody who's going to be outshined by Imu and Xebec, both of who, mind you, were literally introduced in the exact same arc, with Imu's reveal being one chapter before Rox's, with him being in 906 and Rox being in 907. Like, think about that. Xebec, the man whose will Blackbeard is carrying on, and Imu, the man who holds the title that Blackbeard is going after, were introduced back to back in the same arc. And you people think that Blackbeard, who has been around since Drum Island, who was the main villain of the entire pre-time skip and has had the greatest narrative weight placed on him, will end up being simply just a stooge for Xebec to use and a side piece to Imu. Ludicrous, foolish, insane. You people see Xebec and Imu and think Madara and Kaguya, Aizen and Yuak, Vegeta and Frieza. No, not in the slightest, not at all. These are stepping stones, steps on the path to Blackbeard's ascension to be the ultimate threat for Luffy to crush. Imu has already lost to Joy Boy. He may have won that war, but his entire life after has been spent losing to Joy Boy. The true history still exists. The will of D lives on. The poneglyphs are out there. The Davy clan is still dominating him, and simply feeling Joy Boy's presence is enough to have him scream out in fear. Gunko, who is Imu's vessel's biggest fear, is the sun god. Do you want to know why Imu has Luffy and Blackbeard as targets? Because he knows they're capable of bringing him down. Because he knows that there are threats to him. Shirahoshi is only a threat because Luffy's a threat. Vivi is only somebody he's interested in because Lily is somebody he's interested in. Imu looks at Blackbeard and Luffy, and all he sees are danger signs. He sees them and he sees his throne in pieces, with somebody else sitting at the top. Luffy will show Imu why he should be afraid in Elbaf, and Blackbeard will show Imu why he should be afraid after. The fact that Imu is now making his move before Blackbeard has made his move is all you need to know. The fact that Blackbeard's lineage, his history, and the dream of his father is being revealed in the same arc that Imu has now made his move is all you need to know. Teach will be carrying on the will of his father to the very end. Just like his father, he's calculating, ruthless, determined, a man with a plan as grand as his dream is. Xebec would not be disappointed in his son. You guys think Blackbeard is a coward? What? Because of his showing against Whitebeard? He negated his power, gets overconfident, and then takes a hit that deals extra damage to him. I'm sorry, but is that something to make him look worse than anyone else? Is this not literally what Luffy does against Kaido before he gets thrown off Onigashima? A man doesn't have to be 100% all the time. I'm not saying that Blackbeard is a perfect character, that he doesn't have any bad showings. All I'm saying is that the amount of slander he receives for the frankly insignificant things that are considered knocks on his character is actually hilarious. You guys think that Xebec would hate Blackbeard for being a coward when you don't even know the meaning of the word coward? Blackbeard being a coward would be him choosing to live a comfortable life after 30 plus years of sailing with the Whitebeard pirates. That's cowardice. There's a difference between cowardice and caution. Blackbeard acts the exact same way that Xebec does. The only difference is that when Xebec was introduced to us, he was already on the top of his game. Xebec came out of the gate with ACOG and the ability to kill admirals. When he saw Imu face to face and retreated, that was a tactical retreat. He wasn't a coward then, but when Blackbeard does it to Akainu, all of a sudden he's a disgrace. If Xebec was as strong as Blackbeard was, he would have run from Akainu too, because that fight is not worth what he'd be getting to fight it. He's not gonna make his life harder to fight for the sake of fighting. You wanna know what Xebec did when he saw Imu and couldn't beat him? He instantly started amassing the strongest pirates and building himself a base to build his strength, looking for devil fruits to get an edge. Yet we slander Blackbeard for having his crew help him defeat Whitebeard. Do you think that Xebec gathered the Rock's pirates just so they could all sit down and watch him one versus all the world government? He gathered them all so they could help him beat him. A crew helping their captain is not a knock on the captain. Y'all want to call Blackbeard a coward for his showing against Whitebeard, but y'all gonna ignore the fact that he stared down Garp and Sengoku 2v1 to their face and smack talked them ready to fight. Oda is not creating a story about the political importance of those who desire freedom overthrowing their oppressors. He's writing a story about pirates, and Blackbeard is the most pirate out of any pirate in this pirate series. He is Luffy's endgame because he wants the thing that Luffy doesn't want, the world. Luffy doesn't want to conquer anything, Blackbeard does. That's why when Blackbeard does conquer the world, Luffy will realize that he now has to take Blackbeard out for him to have true freedom. Luffy will be doomed to ignore the threat of Blackbeard until it's too late, and once he realizes that, he's gonna see the same thing that Shanks did, which is that Blackbeard cannot be allowed to continue doing what he wants to do. The only difference between Shanks and Luffy, however, is that Luffy will have the power to stop Blackbeard. Light versus darkness, Quake versus a shock absorber. Luffy is destined to have a final bout with Blackbeard because Blackbeard is the direct counter to Luffy as much as Luffy is the direct counter to Blackbeard. Blackbeard is terrifying. He's important. He is not some footstool for other characters, but he is the character who others become a footstool to. Shanks is doomed to die at his hands. Emu is doomed to lose his throne to him. Xebec will have his legacy surpassed and magnified through him, and Luffy is fated to have his final bout with him. The man who was responsible for the death of his brother, the trauma of his mentor, the capture of his grandfather, the displacement of his father out of his main base, and is going to be the final hurdle standing in the way of his true freedom. How could a man like that be the subject of mockery and disrespect, of hatred and scorn? Put some respect on the name of Davy D. Teach, because he's a future king of the world and dominator, a man that would slam any character on their neck no matter how the fight looks, taking attacks that could pierce the iron balloon, who subjugated the man that had a bloodbath with a fleet admiral for 10 days, a man who Shanks had to warn Whitebeard about and has been terrified of since the day he scarred him, capable of crushing the world in his hands and plunging it into darkness, with charisma and swagger great enough to have the worst of the worst criminals in the world ride for him and his dream. I don't need to be the one to tell you, because Oda will show you all the height of your own folly. You can stay on your side over there, lying to yourself that Blackbeard is a bum, a clown, a fraud, cause I'll laugh at you. I'll laugh all the way to the bank as Oda crushes your agendas between Blackbeard's fingers and you realize that he was the one to watch out for all along. Teach is special, and he will be the one to conquer the world. I already know what you guys think about Blackbeard, but I want to know what you think now. Still believe he's a bum? A coward that will end up being the puppet of his father's ambition and a side piece to Emu's greatness? Or have you had your eyes open to understand what Blackbeard truly is? As always, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more high quality One Piece content. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.